well, it's a nice warm day. We should open up the screen. And you say, well, gee, where's the screen? Well, right here. There's the screen. And the rest of it, there's a little latch right there. Holds it even on a windy day.
All right, Carol, so this is Gracie, and you were going to tell me a little bit about it and part of the restoration that you've done.
Ah, yes. Well, we looked at Airstreams at the LA RV show in about, I think, November of 2016, and I'd never really seen an Airstream before. I might have caught a glimpse of an old one parked in a campground up in Arizona years before, but didn't know what it was, didn't know they were still made. Went to that RV show, looked at the Airstreams, and went, wow. And I loved all the windows, and they were so light inside, and they just looked so much more appealing to me. And of course my husband turns to me and says, oh no honey, we can't afford one of these. So I started looking into the vintage ones and the used one, and was thinking, well, that would be a great way to get an Airstream for less than paying new Airstream prices. So we picked her up and brought her home to Georgia because Tim's job in California was done. She's got new axles and wheels and frame. Well, the frame was good. Put in all new marine plywood subfloors and scraped hickory engineered hardwoods, and they had cleaned up the shell on the inside and done some of this metal work in the ends and got it polished on the outside. She's got all new tinted safety glass, but then everything else that's not electrical, plumbing, or gas on the inside, I mostly did that myself. And
that's amazing.
She didn't have anything to use as templates because the guy that started the renovation just threw it all away. And so Tim's holding pieces of cardboard as I'm trying to do that compassy thing with a Sharpie marker, and when you've got curves up and curves down, every time you do that, you lose part of it, and then you have to shift your two pieces of cardboard. It was a challenge, but I managed to do it. All the plywood products in here are what they call veneer core. I just don't like particle board and all that. Now, if real plywood gets a little moist, it survives, it recovers fine, but the other chopped up stuff, not so much.
That's what I always used to say, the particle board turns into oatmeal.
It does, and I really didn't care to have a traveling oatmeal trailer.
Yes.
And I liked the way the Vintage had, you know, the acrylic, and so I thought, well, that would be kind of fun, and then I didn't have to mess around with tons of hardware and hinged, you know, doors and whatnot. And here I decided to go with solid wood because, you know, there was a little bit of electrical that protruded into here, and I used pocket screws to attach my cabinetry to the inner shell. And so I could do a pretty good job of hiding that, but by having the solid doors here, it hid that as well. The trailer was missing its original chimney, I guess you call it, for the refrigerator.
Okay.
So it's easier to show here, like to cover the vent pipe here. I just did like I did on the walls, and I templated and I found a way to make a plywood. And then a gentleman that we hired to do little bits and pieces of it once we got it home. Tim McNutt, he did the shiny aluminum there, and he did the shiny aluminum to make the refrigerator ventilation. And I said, hey Tim, I'm gonna need some 12 volts because, you know, I'm gonna have some audio visual equipment here. And he says, oh, how about if we put it right there in the chimney vent? And it's like, oh, that'd be great. So I've got a couple of 12 volt ports here, and that fires up the Blu-ray player and the music and the little 12 volt TV in the front. And I just had to take it to an automobile audio place to do all the wiring, because I could build the wood and I could install things that way, but to get it all connected and working, I needed somebody with a little bit of expertise there.
Right.
So when our kids were young, we used tent trailers, and in 3 tent trailers in all the years of camping in Arizona, never did we ever make it through one single night with the furnace working, because it would always run the battery down and it would stop. And when you get to those coldest mornings in the hour, it would have stopped running. So I had no desire to spend money to buy a furnace to take up space and do that in Gracie. So instead, I read online about a gentleman that's out of the state of Washington who builds these, I believe he calls them a platinum cat. And it's a catalytic heater, but unlike most where you have to keep windows or doors cracked open, this one you don't because it's vented. And so there's some ducting that runs up through this little bit of a hollow wall space that I created, and down and behind the refrigerator and the back of the pantry, and it exits out just in front of the wheel well. And we've been using that with this cold winter we're having in Florida quite regularly. And just this week, we had to refill the first of our two 30-pound propane tanks. And Tim's been here since early January.
And it's been cold
now,
here.
It has been, and it's the 27th of February, so that's been quite a few weeks of cold weather. With a heater like they typically have in RVs, it would have gone through probably both tanks and maybe more.
Yeah, we've gone through a little more than a tank and a half.
Right,
in ours.
right. And so the ducting takes place with a little plastic squirrel cage that uses just the tiniest amount of 12-volt electrical. So it doesn't run the battery down because it draws so little. So it sips gas and it barely uses any battery power if you don't have hookups. And that's really what I was looking for. It's not a harsh heat. It's, of course, not dufted, but it's enough to really take that chill off at night. And I think probably most people, like I do, sleep better if it's just a little bit cool, but not cold.
So we can talk about the kitchen a little bit and what you've done there?
Well, in 2017, they were putting this range in the classics only. But I tell you what, it was hard to find a source to buy it, when you're not a big company like Airstream. Well, I was able to finally find a source and get that, and I've really liked it. There's a light for the oven. Everything starts with a clip. So it's got a nice oven. And
a glass door in it, too.
And a glass door, so you kind of see what's going. Initially, it came with little wire supports for the pots and pans. But over the winter, I was reading about folks that had upgraded the cooking surface. And a few years ago, we picked up a large vintage that we had for a few years, and we put a Furrion range in there, which is what Airstream is using now in most of their new trailers that aren't classics. And I really liked that top. So, fortunately, the person that was writing online in one of the Airstream forums or Facebook sites gave the linkage to the place to order these, and to order the little things that would pop in the holes where those wire supports came out to close that up. And it's great because now it doesn't matter where you put your pot or your pan, it's got great support. These things are really heavy, more like what you'd have out on your grill. So
yeah, they're cast iron.
Yes, and I just really like them. They just took a wonderful stove and made it better. With this one, it's just nice and level and smooth. And when you've only got a little bit of counter space, you need to be able to use it double duty. The other thing I don't like about a lot of RVs is you get this tiny little sink. And it's not very big, and oftentimes it's not very deep. For a number of years in the Airstreams, they made them round, which never really made sense to me. So I got an honest-to-goodness kitchen-size 33-inch double sink. And I just made cutting board covers that are out of the same wood as my flip-up table. And so when I need all of the 5.5 feet of counter space, it can all be counter space. If I need to do food prep, I can use cutting space, sink space, cooking space. That's worked out really pretty well. After we'd been in here a little while, I realized I needed a place for knives and spices. So I kind of came up with this design and made. And so that just sort of nestles up against the polished aluminum on the side. And I just cut some wood and made it to custom fit the knives that I had that I planned on bringing along. And had a whole set of steak knives and since they're curved, it worked really good because sock curves are curved.
Yes.
And I never have to take anything down from here. Nothing has ever fallen down, jumped out, or whatnot.
So that travels as you go down the road, just in
as
place.
Is. It doesn't move at all. I've been very happy with that. Mm-hmm. I guess the other main thing about the kitchen that's probably different than most is I've got these super deep drawers. Mm-hmm. And I had to make those and install the slides and everything as the walls and cabinets came together, because there's really not a good way to stick your hand back there with a screwdriver or a drill driver and try to get drawer strikes in. So I've got 3 of those.
And those are all soft close.
Yes, they are.
And because they're those side mount glides like that, those things hold like 1,000,000 pounds.
Yeah, they do.
And then they hold them closed as well. So you don't need a bungee, I would assume.
No, I don't have to bungee any of that. And then the fresh water tank goes mostly underneath my husband's bed, but it wasn't entirely under there because it ends right here. So that's why the cabinet had to jog out a bit. But we don't have to crawl around outside to drain the fresh water tank, either for winter or just to sanitize it. Mm-hmm. We just open that little door and it's right there.
Excellent. Now, before we move out of the kitchen, I want to talk a little bit, or have you talked a little bit about the dining area? Because you've got quite a custom table going on in there.
Well, initially the plan was to put a dining booth here that would make into a queen-size bed. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a great idea because I want to take kids and grandkids along as much as possible. But my hubby really wanted a recliner. And so again, looking at a lot of the Airstream posts online, everybody was talking about how wonderful the Lamb's Bright recliners were. Mm-hmm. And they've got that same sort of leather-like material that Airstream was using on their cushions in the new trailers. Mm-hmm. And of course, ordering it, we could have just about any color we wanted. So I'm looking at the upholstery material that I'd already bought, and it's like what's not too light and what's not too dark, and found something I really liked. And this only needs to be 2 or 3 inches from the wall, and it just pops up, and it just fully reclines. And it is so incredibly comfortable. And we have had as many as 4 young grandchildren in here at a time. And, you know, it's really still like new, just as comfortable as ever. So with going away from a dinette booth, it's like, okay, so what are we going to have for a table? And I'd seen pictures and heard about those flip-up tables like Airstream's had, but I'd actually never seen one in person. So I was trying to figure out, well, how do you get that to flip up and how do you get that to flip down and extend? So I had ordered something to do that with, that once I got it, I realized it really wasn't going to work. And it wasn't the right size and it couldn't be cut down. So I thought, well, I've got lots of drawer slides on hand. So I decided to just go ahead and make a drawer that pulls out. And so with that drawer pulled out, all you got to do is take the other half of the table and swing it around, and it's become virtually double in size. And so by having the banquette on one side, one grandparent and 3 little grandchildren can all sit back there, and the other grandparent gets the recliner. And when we're going down the road, I just take these handy dandy little clips and stick them in those little holes I drilled. Mm-hmm. These legs fold up like this. And the whole thing just folds down underneath the windowsill.
That's amazing.
And the little clip is just to keep the top half of the table from flipping over, and it's just like a staple you'd use when you're got your electrician wiring. Mm-hmm.
There's no particle boards or anything in that table. Oh, no. That's all solid wood.
Cherry, maple, and walnut. The windowsill is solid walnut. All the face frames and door frames are solid walnut.
And then your floor is all hickory, correct, as we were talking?
Right. The new subfloor, we specified we wanted the 3/4 inch marine grade plywood, which is a better quality. And then this is a hand-scraped hickory engineered hardwood. It's kind of like that plywood, so it gives it that stability as climates can change. Drier, moister, hotter, colder. That's the advantage of an engineered floor over a solid hardwood, which of course would be even heavier than this was.
Yes.
When it was finally time to put it in, it's like I was very happy with it.
You've got the bedroom in the middle, and then you've done something really unique here, like with these bunk beds.
Right. Well, like I said, I really like taking our grandkids along camping with us. And if possible, I really don't want to put them on the floor. So when we first got Gracie finished, I started talking to my hubby about bunk beds. And he says, I don't want a bunk bed. I want a cabinet. I said, I tell you what, I'm putting a bunk above my bed. Let's live with it a little while and see how that works out. So what I did is I had some of that nice thick maple, and I cut these kind of U-shaped cleats, and I've got them in 4 places. Got some 3/4 inch galvanized steel pipe, and then I had lots of extra upholstery fabric since I didn't do the booth in front. So what I've got is I've got a double layer of that, and just like you might stick a rod through a curtain for simple curtains, there's just a pocket along the front and back that the steel pipe goes through, and then the pipes just drop in these cleats. And when it's not loaded up with all this extra stuff that it supports very well, you can just lift those out. You can roll the 2 pipes around the upholstery fabric. It can just sit in a corner in your closet, taking up almost no space at all. We have found that we like having them in all the time, even if the kids aren't camping with us, because as you can see, it holds a lot of stuff.
It's like having a cabinet without having a cabinet.
Right. And if you had a cabinet, it would go up above the window, and it would end back here, and it would just be a little tiny triangular space. Because this sits down a little lower than the top of the window. That makes it a little more challenging to open and close curtains, but it gives us a lot of space. And now that we're down at Florida for a few months in the winter, I do quilting and Swedish weaving, and Tim's usually got all sorts of stuff going on with his computer, and so he's got all that sort of stuff. We play some card games at night, so we've got a few of those game type things. About a little over a year ago, I decided, it'd be kind of nice sometimes to just be able to stretch out on the beds and watch a little TV, so we went ahead and I added a 32-inch Vizio Smart TV. So when there's football games in January, February, that's kind of nice, or watch a little Netflix. And it wasn't really that hard to connect into the audio-visual that we already had. It's hard to make a bed when it's surrounded by 3 walls. So again, on some of the Airstream groups online, they were talking about these beddies and how cool they were. And I went online to look at the beddies, and it was like, and this was in 2018, oh my gosh, they're like $250 a piece. Of course, we'd already put money into the renovation. You're getting toward the end. That's not the time when you want to whip out the checkbook and write a check for something big. So I thought, I know how to sew. I bet I can figure out how they're made. So we took the mattress in and put it on the dining room table, and I just kind of reverse engineered it. So it just kind of zips down and around that corner. And then there's just a nice soft piece of fleece that comes out. And then to make the bed in the morning, you just tuck the fleece in and just run the zipper back around. And ladies, my hubby makes this bed every morning, usually before I do.
That's very handy.
If you want to sit down on it to, take shoes on or off, or take a nap in the afternoon when you get up, it's still all tucked in. And there isn't anything more than a little divot mark. You can just give it a little smooth, but it's not like the bed is all torn apart. To protect the kids from a head or an arm coming across the edge, I just take a pool noodle. I just take an electric kitchen knife like you'd use to carve a roast or a turkey, and just cut into that. And that just clamps around the outside of it. So then with the fleece, we've never had an issue with anybody rolling out. In fact, I didn't even bother making a ladder because A, I wouldn't know where to put it. And B, I don't want kids jumping in and out of their bed during the day with their dirty feet and sandy cuffs and whatnot. They get all cleaned up at night. Nighttime is a good time for a bath. Tuck them in nice and fresh and clean into their bed. And in the morning, when we're ready for them to get up, then we lift them out. And now as they're getting older, it's probably going to be a combination of lifting and assisting. But the unusual thing about this bedroom build out is my hubby's bed is just on a standard plywood platform. Mine is on slats.
Oh, look at that.
The reason mine are on slats is because the whole thing is mounted on 500-pound drawer slides. And so my whole bed frame pulls over right up next to his. So my mattress and his mattress are level. When I cut down his mattress, it was, slenderizing a twin. Mine started out as a full, and I cut 19 inches off and I upholstered it, just like all the rest of the upholstery in here. It drops right in there against the wall. Of course, it could drop in the middle. And so the whole area becomes a little wider than an Eastern King and a little longer than a California King. So if you want to use it as a guest room, as a guest house, you could set it up as a big king-size bed.
And then we've got the bathroom in the back.
I wanted to have my wardrobe cabinet within the bathroom area to create more of a changing room, and I wanted to try to have as much floor space as possible. Now, when this 1964 Overlander was first built, it had a toilet right here centered under the window, which I just thought was the most incredibly gross place. Gross thing to have in your major sight line coming in. My goal was to keep the cabinet under the window as shallow as possible, because that's also the emergency exit window. Every RV has to have an emergency escape because it's only got one door. So I kept it narrow, got a nice oval stainless steel sink that had a marine application. Generally, when you get parts from the marine industry, they're generally a little nicer, a little better quality. And so that gave me that ability, and then put a nice single stem faucet and keep that as far out of the center of the window as possible. And by doing that too, it opened up more space along the front of the tub shower. So there's really quite a bit of room in here. There's probably, 4.5, 5 feet, something like that.
I would say it's about 4 feet from the edge of the cabinet to the edge of the door.
Okay. And so I've got a small wardrobe here, and they're really deep. So, like the blanket that's folded at the foot of the bed, that's how they get folded when they go in here. And that whole length goes all the way deep into the cabinets. And they're all adjustable shelving. And then on this side, I dropped out a couple of the adjustable shelves so that we could make use of the hang-up bar. So we've got, 18, 24, something like that, inches of hang-up space. And when we're going down the road, I just put one of those little tension rods across here. And that really does a good job of keeping the hangers from jumping off. And then in the bottom, we've still got room for a couple of these great big IKEA bins. And so we've each got a great big IKEA bin for clothes, and behind it there's still room for a couple of those plastic shoebox bins, because again, it's so deep. We can't have a pocket door because we each have a cubby for a bottle of water. We've got a light, and we've got 4 USB charge ports. So can't have a pocket door, and we've got those on both sides. So I'm trying to think of ways to get our privacy here that's a little more substantial than a curtain. So I came up with this design. This door also functions as the bathroom door with this hinge. And then it's held in place with this simple rendition of an outhouse latch.
Look at that.
And that just drops down where the two wood stiles come together, where they hinge up. And that's enough to keep it pressed up tight. And it works really very well.
That's a brilliant and simple solution.
Didn't need a bunch of bulkiness. Couldn't have a pocket door. didn't think a fabric door was going to be enough, so that's worked really well. So I'll usually put just a little bit of a wood clamp here when we're going down the road, so it keeps it more solid. We had a 30-gallon black tank added, and then we had space beyond it into the corner where the old black tank had previously been beyond the floor, and the old floor plan had some sort of cabinetry here. So I kind of did a pie shape, and that just gives us some nice storage, access for a basket. We've got all of our electrical components back here, including an EMS system, electrical. It's beyond a surge protector because it protects against open grounds and low voltage and things like that that can really mess with your electrical system. So those are all just tucked back there. More storage behind the bottom sliders. And the one thing left original inside the trailer is the bathtub. Originally, there was a little sink that hovered here because the toilet was under the window. And it had a fiberglass, but the front skirt was damaged and whatnot. So we had that cut off, and then I did some wood support. And then Tim McNutt put stainless steel along the front of it, put stainless steel here on the wall of the cabinet, so you're not getting a wood wall wet here. And then the original fellow that started the renovation had put in the aluminum. So we've got an Oxygenetics shower head and some dispensers and a nice IKEA, triple rack to hang, wet swimming suits or towels or wash rags on. And that's just where we keep our laundry baskets. It's very convenient. If we're going to take a shower or bathe one of the grandkids, we just pull it out. It goes on top of the toilet, on top of the bed, or on the floor in the front of the trailer. And I just, I picked up a piece of 1" by 1/8" aluminum at Lowe's, and I just kind of messed around trying to create a template and just bent it with my vise at home and offset it so that we could use it as a shower curtain.
It's really clever because it's doing both the, you're able to pull the hose up for the shower unit and weave through, and yet it fits tight enough at the top where you're not having any kind of leakage. It doesn't leave a gap.
Right.
Now, Caroyl, there's one thing we were talking about earlier that really surprised me is that you're thinking about selling Gracie.
Yeah, we are. That was hard. We started coming down to Florida for a few months at a time, and she's a perfect travel size, but she's a little small when you're shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip for a few months. And, some of the things we'd like to be able to do and get people over, and, I've learned to quilt since I've come down here. But there isn't like a nice big table booth area. If I sat up on this table, then it would, restrict it from, evening activities like eating dinner and playing cards. The slightly larger Airstreams that have a sofa on one end and a dinette booth in the middle is really what we're hoping for. And after now living in her down in Florida for a few months, we've come to more of an agreement that a larger trailer would probably suit us better at this stage. We've decided to put her back on the market, and I've told Tim that he's really in charge of that because he's the guy that has to figure out, how much is enough, because there's hardly any dollar amount that would ever be enough for me because, she's kind of my baby.
Right.
But we've come to a good agreement as a couple that it's probably going to be best for us to say goodbye and let someone else enjoy her. And she would be a perfect camper for a young family, because she was designed with 3 children in mind. The mid-cabin twins, they sleep 2 adults, and the bunk beds up above, sleep 2 kids. And this banquette that I'm sitting on is 65 inches long and about 27 across at the widest part.
Oh, 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 she's in love.